So this is a traditional search on Amazon. And the reason I'm opening up with this, because it's a really core point that when you type in any search term, this is the first thing you're seeing as a customer. So back in the day, it was all about how do we get on page one? How do we get on page one? And that was enough because there was so much traffic and, competition was a lot less. And Amazon advertising didn't look like this. Nowadays, as you can see, if you are not ranked number one, customers have to scroll to the bottom of the page to see you. And what this has caused is the space to be a lot different. We have to optimize for very different things. It's a lot more competitive. But the reason it's so much more competitive is because it's the most valuable real estate on Amazon, if not in America, e-commerce right now, I would say. So when you're looking at the purchase intent of Amazon, that top placement on the page is getting all of the eyeballs on the page. All of the eyeballs to the point where this headline ad right here and the top 3 placements make up 70% of click share. Now, this is where it gets interesting because most brands can't afford to be here 100% of the time. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 of one, how do you set up your Amazon advertising campaigns to make sure you're winning the headline ad and the sponsored ads driving 70% of traffic, but also make sure you're driving profitability because at the end of the day, you have inventory to buy. So when we're looking at general Amazon advertising strategy, this is what we're building everything from and really making sure we're scaling for long-term success on the platform. Now, here's a really fun screenshot from an account that we've managed for quite a few years. In 2015, average CPCs were 45 cents, which means you could, run an ad anywhere on the page and more than likely see a profitable return because the actual real estate you were bidding on was so cheap. In this exact same account, you can see in 2022, we hit $1.82 CPC. So that is a huge jump. So even if nothing changes, even if we're converting the exact same as 2015, we're bidding on the same targets, we're running everything the exact same, our efficiency has lowered by less over 100%. So keep that in mind. A lot of brands are saying, hey, my ACoS is increasing. My ACoS is increasing. Let's lower bids. Let's lower bids. I'm like, yes, let's do that. But knowing you're going to have a lot less traffic. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. So what happens when the real estate's the most expensive and best real estate on the page? Everyone wants it. Think Malibu, think Billionaires Row, think of how many people are willing to pay for that real estate. Whether or not we're able to afford it, there's someone out there that can. So what happens is a bunch of these big name players or people who have more budget than us come in and they start bidding very aggressively to win that real estate, which means we're probably getting pushed down. We're, not showing up at the top of the page with our regular bid anymore. We're now showing up at the bottom of the page or page 2 and page 3. And that's where we really discuss setting your Amazon advertising up strategically to drive both scale, but also profitability. Because as all of these bids get so much higher, this is a normal situation that we see across a lot of accounts. It's like, hey, in order to win the number one placement on the page, we're going to need to bid almost $5. And that's where we're getting all of the traffic because as we just saw, 70% of click share goes there. But we're going to have to do it at $1.25 return. That's terrible. That's what, a 90% ACoS maybe? I can't do that math in my head right now. So when we're talking with brands, we're really setting up strategies for both. We're going to create campaigns targeting our top keywords for the top of the page because that's what's driving the majority of the sales. That's what's going to improve our organic rank because at the end of the day, organic rank comes down to conversion rate and velocity. And the number one way to influence your velocity on the page is to get ranked in the top 4 through external traffic and or rely on Amazon advertising traffic, which typically converts higher, even if it can be sometimes more expensive. On the flip side, the next thing I almost always see brands do is lower bids, lower bids, lower bids. ACoS is all that matters. Well, what happens when you lower your bid is your ad is no longer showing up at the top of the page, which makes up for 70% of clicks. Now we're showing up on our competitor's product detail page, and now we're showing up on page 2 and page 3. And as we know, that's only 30% of traffic. So when we lower bids, yes, our profitability is going to increase just through the nature of optimization. But what often happens is there's a major decline in sales. And when there's a major decline in sales, your organic rank typically decreases as well. Because again, volume and conversion rate are the two biggest influencers of your placement on the page. So when you start decreasing your sales, you're going to slightly see a drop in, your overall organic revenue. And that's where it becomes a dangerous game. Now, again, it's a fine line. We try to balance both as best as possible. But all the brands we're working with, we're like, hey, you got to start prioritizing long-term growth and scale. And we need to talk about that because yes, lowering your ACoS in the next 25 days is going to be amazing and profits going to be really high. But the moment you start slipping an organic rank, it's going to be smaller profit, smaller profit, smaller profit. So we really try to focus on economies of scale of, hey, we only may be making $1 per unit now, but we're selling 200,000 rather than making $10 per unit and only selling 2,000. That's truly what we're trying to dive and find the right balance for here. Now, what this looks like, again, organic rank, high conversion rate, high sales. If you want to improve your organic rank really, really quick, you better make sure your conversion rate is better than the rest of the category, which Amazon now tells us, and make sure we're driving a ton of volume. Now, if you can't afford to drive a ton of volume in a short amount of time, then you're going to have to pace that out over 30, 60, 90 days, which a lot of people don't like waiting on in the Amazon space. A lot of people are like, hey, let's see immediate results, immediate feedback. Let's turn on this ranking campaign right now. And in 7 days, I better be on page 1. Well, that's not quite how it works because you need to match the volume of the top 4, top 8 on the page. So in order to do that, you can do some quick math on what the spend is required. And it's going to take a decent amount of time to match that volume. So knowing all of this, and I have a more in-depth content on this if anyone has any questions, but in short, we create campaigns for strategy. Our ranking campaigns, we do not care what the ACoS is. ACoS is not a sign of a successful campaign whatsoever. ACoS is a sign of our profitability, but not of a high converting campaign. So we create rank campaigns and we focus on, hey, are we converting better than category average? Yes. Well, how much budget can we afford as a brand to put to this campaign? We'll set a cap and then we will track our BSR or our market share through search query performance. On the flip side, we'll have our profitability focused campaigns, which are focused on ACoS and ROAS. We'll be focusing on lowering our bids and making sure we have the full traffic potential that's going to balance out our overall ROAS and our overall tacos to achieve both profit and incremental sales through better organic performance. Now, the last thing I'll really dive into is kind of how we utilize some of the tools to help track this. And I'll keep this quick because these alone could be hour-long presentations. So I don't want to go that deep, but search query performance gives us conversion rate on the product level and the category level. All you have to do is, look at your clicks and purchases. So we highly recommend pulling that for your top keywords that you're trying to improve your organic rank on, and then backing into that data with brand share percentage. So brand share percentage right here is the overall market share that we're making up for the search terms. So if I'm bidding more on cheese slicer and focusing on improving my organic rank, I better be seeing my brand share percentage increase because I want to know that, hey, out of the whole category for this search term, I'm making up more market share because my visibility on the page has improved. So that's a really quick place to look for in terms of understanding your overall performance. And then the last one I'll dive into really quick is the Insights and Planning tab in Amazon Advertising Console. A lot of people do not know this exists, but if you go to Ad Console, click on this arrow right here, you're going to be shown all of the categories that are correlated to your brand. So this is a specific brand we manage. I want to look at vitamins. For the vitamins category, this is including your organic data. This is not just your advertising data. For your retail, organic, and advertising data, you can see, hey, we are converting at a 42%. Versus category medians at 28%, versus category top is at a 53%. So within vitamins, I can go to my brand and say, hey, we really need to either lower our price or improve our offer in order to start converting as well as category top. Now, we usually use category median as the benchmark. Category top's not necessarily realistic to compare yourselves to at most times. But the reason this data is so important is because it's giving you your overall conversion rate relative to the whole category. So now before you even focus on driving traffic, you can make sure your brand is best positioned to compete. And I will tell you, I'm sure like everyone on this has had brands come to us like, I have the best listing on the page. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make sure the customers are saying the same thing. And that's what this data shows us. Are we truly converting better than category median? So I'll leave it at that. Anyone have any quick fire questions, or if you need additional resources to explain these topics, more than happy to send them over and dive in.